everyone. Welcome to the Ophthalmology Business Podcast. We help you develop your ideal practice with help of other doctors and experts. The topics we cover include marketing, management, leadership, recruitment, HR, mindsets, and more. I am Guido Paquette, one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to join the Ophthalmology Business Academy at www.obacademy.org. The membership is on us, and it's our gift to you. Today, I'm excited to talk to Anita Nayak, founder and CEO of ClinDcast. Our topic today is data interoperability in healthcare. Let's jump in. Hello, Anita. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. And today's topic of data interoperability, I think is a very important one to discuss because as our world continues to digitize and there's more connectedness in our healthcare systems, interoperability is an important topic. I think many listeners may not have a full understanding of the scope of what that means because it can mean several things depending on the application. And so I think it's a good topic to discuss to maybe provide a little bit more clarity to our users about what is data interoperability in healthcare, why it's important, and things like that. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Guido. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Can you just introduce yourself and just tell us how you got into healthcare?
Great pleasure to be here. Yeah, so how I came to healthcare side, when I was in college, my major was health science, and I had a wish to come to the healthcare side. But when I grew up, I grew up in India, and I had a wish to be a doctor, but it's a lot of money, and that time we could not afford that one. But luckily, I got a chance to work on the IT side. That's where my career started. So
And-
it's been more than 17 years I'm into healthcare IT side, and it's been 4 years I started my company here.
And thank you for that history. I know that all of us in healthcare sometimes end up at the end of their journey or during their journey in different ways. Me personally, I started in IT and moved into operations. And so there's so many dynamic things to do in healthcare. So starting from wanting to become a doctor to working in IT and healthcare, it's a great field. So glad that you were able to kind of find what you were passionate about. And so the topic of today, data interoperability, like I said in the introduction, I think some people may not understand what that means. Can you just kind of give a broad overview of what data interoperability is and what that means?
Oh, yeah, sure. So that's a great question. So interoperability is like how data moves smoothly. So before we called it integration, and then now we are calling it interoperability. So how multiple systems communicate with each other. So let me give you an example. For example, someone came from India and they speak in our language is Hindi, and someone came from Japan, they speak Japanese. So how both will communicate with each other? They need a standard, let's say common language like English. So English is a medium. So it is a standard of language how two person can communicate and they explain their stuff. So some way healthcare system has been built in its own architecture, own database. So how they will talk to each other? So they need a standard. So that is the time HL7 organization, the standard organization, they came to the picture to set up a standard. So initially we use HL7 V2 and the CCDA with their very limitation, and now everyone is pretty much coming with FIRE standard, that is the latest standard. So that build with the API. So all these standard based on the needs of healthcare organization, to exchange the data among the system, which is called data interoperability. So, moreover, how it is in the healthcare landscape. So, let's talk about real challenge. So, if you see other industry like banking industry, so they're using application programming interface, that is the API. So they have very high level architecture, the way data exchange happen securely. So in healthcare data exchange, in healthcare side, to make it modernized and exchange data between the system, that is what interoperability coming into the picture, following the standard to exchange the data between the systems.
So for the listener listening, in layman's terms, maybe you would say it's how different systems talk to each other.
Yes.
Because different systems speak different languages.
That's true.
And in order to get those two systems to communicate, there needs to be some medium to get those two things to work together, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you think of like what are some of how do we use it in healthcare? Like what are some of the biggest applications how we use data interoperability, or maybe some ways that you've used it with some of your clients and why that's important?
Sure. So that's a great question. So when we are talking about interoperability in healthcare, so let's take a scenario. So when we are talking about patient data exchange, right? So if there is no standard, no interoperability, and anyone is developing their own localized system, and when they are integrating with other application, again the development has to happen how system talk to each other. So it's a huge challenge. But if you look at post COVID, so mindset shift from patient perspective. Patient is demanding more involvement in their own patient care. So they are looking for their own data, again for the research and for other perspective. So when we consider patient as a consumer, they check their data regularly. And from a high demanding consumer, they wanted to check their claims data, medical record regularly, and what claim processed, and also the explanation benefits for each transition happening. Now they're very demanding. So how the data is available in their fingertip. So that's why CMS mandated the interoperability rule, like all these payer provider, they have to open up their API so that easily patient they can use the mobile application and they can get the access to their data so that they can get, easily they can they can see the data anywhere they go. So there is a huge need and demand for data access. That's the reason it is important all the entity, whoever has the healthcare data exchange among the system, follow the standard like FHIR, and that is part of HL7. So it is being widely adopted. And now the reason being is patient being a consumer asking the data, and that is standard wisely used among the system to exchange the data. So if I take another example, like what is happening is multiple resource. If we'll take the example like the long-term care patient, what is happening is multiple resources are getting involved in the care. But if it is standardized and it available in a standard way to the healthcare provider in the same format, and the system can easily talk to each other and it will easy to provide the better care. So that, for example, for a long-term care, the case manager get involved, provider get involved, and also the community, they also get involved. So once the data is available in the electronic format with a standard way, that can be exchanged in a standard way, and every system speaks the same language. It makes it easier, and that's the reason it is very important for all the three key players. a payer, provider, and patient to stay in a coordinated care and exchange the data in a better way using the standard.
So connecting healthcare data can make the process of delivering healthcare to patients better.
Correct.
I think that was the mandate of the
CMS.
some of the CMS and some of the, like when the first initial regulation came out with meaningful use and a lot of the mandate for systems to be able to communicate and send EMR data. I remember being part of that because when we rolled out our EMR systems, we had to ensure that in order to be meaningful use compliant, the system had to be able to send a CCDA document. They had to be able to communicate in some way. So I think, though, that what I have seen is that the intent of trying to connect data is more challenging when you actually try to apply it, because there are certain barriers that get in the way sometimes, and one can be, maybe the system created an interoperability format to be able to do this just to be compliant, but it's not very functional, and it's not very user friendly, and the staff or physicians don't use it the right way and don't adopt it. So that's been my experience of having our physicians adopt that, is that not only our physicians in our practice, but many other physicians, just because there are so many different platforms that tout interoperability, there's not a unified way to do it. And so it hasn't been universally accepted.
Yeah, now everyone started developing their own API using FAR standard. Yep.
Right. So I mentioned one of those challenges, and I want to ask you, what are some of the challenges that you see? But let me finish that thought with telling you, in ophthalmology. So one of the challenges is when our physicians want to plan for certain procedures, or there's different data points that they bring together to do that. Let's say, example, for cataract patients. In order to do that, they're bringing in exam information. They want to bring in diagnostic information, different measurements, IOL, OCT. They want to bring in all these data points and then make some kind of a lens calculation based off that data. But what I've experienced is that because all the different manufacturers have their own language and the way that they set up their software, it becomes very challenging to get those systems to communicate consistently. So that's an example from ophthalmology. But what other challenges that do you see in healthcare when you approach these challenges of interoperability and making things communicate?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah. So the biggest challenge we are seeing, like the prior authorization and the price transparency. So with respect to price transparency, if you go to a grocery store, you know what you have to buy. You know how much is the apple, right? So you know what are the things, what is the price and all. But when it comes to healthcare, we don't know what is the cost, right? It looks like, it's not like the patient can afford or cannot afford, but it is like psychological impact from patient perspective, that without knowing, they may think it's expensive. But if the price is available and it's in a fingertip, so it will be very easier for the patient to take the decision. And another challenge is physician burnout. So physician burnout, that is another challenge, because the physician, you can see the provider, they are doing a lot of documentation when they are providing the care. So after COVID, we had very limited resource and very delayed care happen. So we need more provider to serve our community. Also, we can use like AI technology to help the documentation process and streamline some of the workflow. If we use the technology, that will help the provider to provide the better care. And also, if you talk about like the other challenge, I think prior authorization. So for prior authorization, all these pharmacy, the retail pharmacy and the other pharmacy, they are having the challenge like when provider is sending the document for the prior authorization, again from the payer perspective, they need lot of documentation. They have a bigger, the questionnaire and all. So they are waiting when they'll get the data. And the patient is waiting when he will get the care. So there is delayed in the care. So, but the data is already available in the EMR application. If they can use certain AI tool so that it will understand what exactly data need to send to the payer side so that it will go and extract the data from the EMR application and send to the payer so that it will easy for the prior authorization process end to end. That is the challenge we see and technology can help.
And so what do you see coming in the future for data interoperability to hopefully potentially make it better, easier, faster to communicate between different systems? Is there anything cool that's coming up in the future?
So in the future, if you ask me, so the future is promising because when we talk about interoperability, we have been talking about for a long time. So now we have QHIN, Qualified Health Network. Any provider, they can ask data for their patient, they can get the data in the network, which is a huge advantage. So now QHIN is there, TEFCA is coming, and using this together and the CMS rule, ONC policy is coming together. So it will help a lot to do the data exchange and making it available. And currently information blocking is a key factor now and which has opened up. So health system, payer, policymaker, and patient all together making the dream come true. The patient will have their own data available to any care provider to any point of time. They will definitely take the life, that will definitely take the life easier for patient and payer. It will save a lot of money and time.
What are some resources that healthcare practices can tap into if they need help with data interoperability or just connecting their different systems that they use to see patients?
Okay, so actually, if you look at the changes in the healthcare industry currently, they are moving to the cloud. So cloud is supporting healthcare security if we talk about AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. So everyone is open of their cloud to be enabled with API security and even different integration provider like MuleSoft, SnapLogic, and OnData. All these company, so they have developed their platform which is healthcare friendly, IT friendly, and development friendly. So as we discussed earlier, there is a demand and that has to be available. But now with the technology infrastructure, you can see that Microsoft is investing a lot and Amazon is investing a lot. Google is also there investing a lot into the healthcare side. And all these API platform like MuleSoft, SnapLogic, Workato. So they're also coming up with their platform to be integrated with cloud. So basically what is happening is, again, we have a bigger FHIR community always contributing, coming up with the different use case and implementation guide specific to the US. And all these technologies currently available in the marketplace is coordinated and is addressing the real challenges of the patient. If all this technology work together, it will definitely enhance the care coordination and among different provider and data exchange will be seamlessly happening without any manual work. The technology is evolving, the consumer demand is evolving in the same space in the healthcare IT. So I'm looking into the technology is going to solve the real challenges in the consumer perspective. So many technology available in the market. only we have to open up our eye and get involved into that.
And so if they need help, they'll call you?
Oh, actually, yeah. So if they need any integration, yeah. So from clinical side, what we are doing is we are helping to do all this because hospital system, they are using different application. We are helping them how this system will integrate with each other, how they can put together using that cloud service. So we are helping all those technology side.
Perfect. Well, Anita, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today to talk about data interoperability in healthcare. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your friends and on social media. Also, please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. Till we meet again, wishing all of you an amazing week ahead.